Like to call the City of Ione a regular meeting of Tuesday, November 19th, 2024 to order. Janice, can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Atlan,
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Here.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Here.
Vice Mayor Ratten.
Here.
And Mayor Levine.
Here. I would like to get a motion to move all closed items to the end of the meeting. Number one, conference with real property negotiation. Item number two, public employee performance, and number three, public employment, city attorney.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you may stand for pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number D, we're going to move to the end, report out of closed session. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Presentations and announcements, we have none. We will open it up to public comment for any item that is not mentioned on the agenda.
Is it proper to talk about the golf course at this time? It's within the public's purview. So hearing no objections. We started going down this road as a city with about June 4th, when we were first mentioned or heard mentioned that the Hahn family or whoever entity did not want to run the golf course, was thinking about getting out of the lease. That was a closed door session on your June 4th. We have been talking about this for months and months going down the road. And here we are tonight. So is there not an arbitration clause in there? Because I would think that not wanting to run the golf course is kind of like a breach of contract. And I don't think we're here to make somebody whole either. It's a business. I don't think the city's here to make somebody whole. I appreciate the fact, the little history is George and I sat on both sides of this years ago. And I am going to say, I would trust George's knowledge and everything about the golf course, the surrounding values of golf courses and everything else on what they are worth. So I'm not trying to get on you guys, but I said it's time to start really looking at your toolbox, and eminent domain is in there. And that might be the fairest there is towards both sides. It's not a taking of their property without paying fair market value. So I just would like to reiterate that I bet you most of these citizens right here in this hall would like to see an end to this and have some surety on what's going to happen with the golf course in the next several months or this summer going forward. So thank you, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Gary.
I would like to know why there's been no resolution to thank the Harris out there and the Axis for donating $50,000 for a police car. And I think you'd make a resolution thanking that. And they also, the Harris bought the seats that we're sitting in, and nobody ever thanked them for that. The ones you're sitting in, they bought them for you. We never thanked them one iota. I think the city should do that.
My name's Jack Copeland. I live in Jackson and have been trying to buy a house on the golf course now for a year and a half and have run into impediment after impediment trying to put a value on the property and the viability of the property, given the actions of this council. Like the previous gentleman, I'd like to add some more flavor, but with some more details about the current situation. You've been at this for 4 months. On November or December 4th, Mr. Hahn is going to close it down.
I'm gonna have to stop you. This is on closed session, and before we go into closed session, we will take comment on that item.
Okay,
I probably should have. Where'd he go? Oh, thank you. Yeah, it is on closed session, and we do, before we go in, we will open it up for comment. Okay. Any other items for public comment not on the agenda? Anyone on Zoom, Chief? No? We're gonna close public comment. Move on to information items. They are no action to be taken. The fire department, building department, and wastewater treatment plant report. On to the consent calendar. I would like to pull the minutes to ask questions and the warrants.
Great.
We can probably just discuss them now. We got 5 months of minutes to review.
3 months. August, September, October.
5 meetings, I'm sorry.
And the
5
reason
meetings.
they were late is I was sick for 2 weeks and then I had a week's vacation. So I did get behind, so I apologize for that.
Okay.
But I'm pretty well caught up now.
I'm not. I don't know if anybody else was able to go through them, but I got through the first 2. Okay,
Very motor, that's.
yeah, and the recordings are on the city website now to listen to, not all of them? None of them?
The audio's on the video.
The audios are on.
You are correct.
There's also a big lapse on the
Yes.
agendas on the website as
Mhm.
well. We're missing several months of agendas.
For the first part of 2024 or 2023?
I think
We talked about the
2023,
original ones when the switch over from the website. Yeah, I haven't gotten those to.
not the backlog, but 2023 and 2024.
Mhm. Yeah,
They all should be on there.
Yeah,
there's about 6 months missing.
So I don't post the agendas. That's Janice and Jordan.
Okay,
So I could take a look and see.
I think it's from March
2023?
forward. Yeah, there's a gap. Okay. And on the warrants, we had a handful of checks appear at the special meeting that were not on the agenda. And I was asked to sign those checks against my better judgment. I asked for those checks to come back and be on this warrant list, and they are not. I'm not accustomed to signing checks that council has not approved. And one of those checks was a rather large check with absolutely no supporting documents, none. So I've requested our city manager multiple times to get that documentation. Mr. Lee?
Yes, and
Yes.
I've CC'd you on various communications I've had with Kathy Stone and Justin.
Yeah, and I've
Ask them-
responded.
And I've asked them multiple occasions, so hopefully I'll continue to ask. them.
Well, if they can't provide the documentations for at least for that $48,000 check, we have a problem.
Mhm.
Because it was written up front with no supporting information, and I'm still confused as to why the city didn't make that purchase since it was our flow meter.
Well, I think Kathy Stone gave you an email this evening responding to the fact that that comes under their maintenance contract. So I can.
To make large
comes-
purchases of that,
Comes under their maintenance contract.
maintenance, yes,
yes.
but not
That
to
happened to be
purchase.
an emergency item. And now, if the circumstances were different and that was not an emergency item, because right now we're up against the wall.
Oh, I understand
So-
because it was brought to us at the
Yes.
very last minute. But I still don't understand why the city didn't purchase it,
Because we're not managing the plant.
but it's our equipment.
Yes, it is, but we're not managing it. We gave a contract to Waterstone to manage the facility.
I
So
feel like
again,
we're
if
talking
it was under
apples and
us,
oranges.
so,
So who owns that equipment?
the city does, but we're hired Kathy Stone and Waterstone to manage it for us. Just like of a golf course.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we wrote a check for exactly the cost.
100%. But they do have in their contract, which I did check, they do have a 10% markup, right?
Okay, so we can expect a 10% markup.
Correct, and the subsequent email that they did send outlined all of the line items did have a 10% markup on it.
There were no numbers on it, though.
I think they sent that to you. I have a copy if you like.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, I hope that we're not put in that position again.
Sure, I understand.
Okay,
Are you finished?
go ahead.
I have a question on Arco Business Solutions. Who are they and what did they do for us for 10 grand?
Know that. Any idea on what that is? Aqua Solutions?
There's a lot of,
Can you go to the podium, please? Thank you.
So far,
first, would you mind introducing yourself since this is your first meeting?
sure. I'm the new finance manager for the city of Ione, and I'm currently trying to unravel a lot of this stuff and figure it out. Person on my team has done a lot of work with the Arco account, and it's our understanding that it's a credit card that we throw a lot of supplies and tools that are needed by various departments on there. There should be a lot of receipts to document all the various things that lead up to those values.
Is this a backlog?
I can help clarify some of that too. So the Arco card is the city credit card, so there's several of them out there. But it's also used for all the PD vehicles for fuel. That's our fuel cards.
Okay, but on here, on the list, it's listing, I see the fuel, which is fine. But we've got software, we've got tools, we've got FD vehicle rep, we've got communications,
Wow.
admin, sewer billing. Are these all charges done just in the month or does this represent a backlog of costs that we're being paid?
I've solely taken over accounts payable myself, but I do know that we have everything to back up what those charges are. I believe those should be current.
Okay.
Well, it has an invoice date of 11/2/2024 across the board. So I would assume that's one
1
statement.
month.
Like I said, it should be current. Unless there's something that came up that an old receipt that was found, but for the most part, everything on there should be current. And unless there was a big charge in there, a revolving charge.
Well, we put a lot of money on a credit card this month.
Yeah. Hi.
Right, our AP team, Kirsten's really good about collecting all the various receipts for that, so you should be able to see an exact breakdown of what exactly made that up.
Yeah, it's all here. But I've not seen this much charged in any given month. Ever. So it really stood out. If
there a
you could, yeah, I mean, if you can get back to us and let us know, why we are putting all of these kinds of things on the credit card. I don't, and particularly what are the admin costs that are on here? Sewer billing, I'm not sure why that would go on the credit card.
Those shouldn't be hard things to address. I should be able to
Sure.
look into.
And if you could just let me know what that is, that would be great.
Sure.
Can just say, that a couple of our admin staff, or at least one, went for training for
Yeah,
the
we
sewer
understand that.
billing.
Yeah.
So that might be some of.
Yeah,
what
there is
that-
training on here.
Okay, I just.
Yeah,
wanted
training
to-
is separate
And
from the
it's in
admin.
okay.
It's in the
So,
budget.
yeah.
too.
well, and training is on here and but that's a different breakdown than the admin. So that training, I understand. The sewer, I don't understand. And a few of these others I don't understand, and we've just never seen it. So if I can get some clarity on that, that would be great.
Do we have any sort of policy on credit card, or is it just who has it, uses it?
No, they have to be checked out.
We are developing a policy right now.
We
with,
have a
uh,
policy.
I mean, we're reviewing everything with Mr. Orsby on with a new finance manager on staff. So he's taking a look at all of our policies and trying to reassess whether we should add to them, cancel them, or make them better.
Okay, well, we do have a policy on how they're to be used and how they are, who can use them, and they're checked out and rechecked back in, and because that was a thing.
Yeah, I remember.
I'll make sure that Michael follows up and gets a report back to you.
Thank you.
That it?
That's all I have.
Can
I have one more. We paid Jake Herfel 10 grand as well.
That was for the labor, I believe, for the some of the labor that he used for the construction of the bathroom facility at Depot Park, which was approved. It's in the
Okay.
budget.
Thank you.
can I get an approval of the consent agenda?
We're not doing the minutes, right? Okay,
No.
I'll make a motion to approve the warrants.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to regular agenda. Item number 1, information on annexation of Brickyard Road. Brian Damiani, Executive Officer. I would like to make a correction of the staff report. Council has never voted to approve Brickyard.
I said
Yep.
to move forward in the process. I think it says
I think it says voted.
voted to move forward in the process.
So,
So, but anyway, thank
Actually,
you.
technically what we asked for was more information.
Yes, and so.
That's what we did.
Again, it says, process of annexing Brickyard Road subject to confirming whether the county would clean up the debris and trash surrounding Brickyard Road. So I have confirmed that they would do that, but I did have Mr. Mackey, I think he's on a call right now, but we do have Mr. Damiani here to answer any questions that you may have regarding.
Chief is here.
The Chief is here. So first, he's gonna give his comments, and then Mr. Damiani will answer any questions.
Thank you, council. I'm sorry we had a vehicle accident in front of the academy, so thank you for having me back regarding this. As I've stated multiple times before, Brickyard Road is essential to our city safety plan in the south area, particular to the Wildflower subdivision of the 200+ residents. That is your second or emergency way to get out, and the threat from wildland, as well as if anything happens on Highway 104, Foothill Boulevard, you have no way to get out at that point. Brickyard Road is 100% county owned and operated right now, including the portion that is paved going up to Foothill Boulevard. So by not taking in just the road, I'm not talking about the island, but just the road, we would have no access to Wildflower for the Wildflower subdivision. So please keep that in mind when you're considering the annexation. It's not for the property, it's only for the roadway itself. So there's been some misunderstanding as far as the way the paperwork was written and understood. We just need the access points, and then in future growth for the city, we don't have to reapply through the permits to get onto the highways or onto county roads because the road is already there. We just make improvements to it. And that's part of our citywide master plan for the future. But right now, my main focus is to emphasize to the council the emergency access point. We just had a fire out there earlier in the year that the homeless had lit, and that was one of our access points to get in from the bottom side. The other side was up on top of 104. But in the moment of crisis, we can't be going over berms and trying to gain access, and that's what the county is going to put in or destroy the road completely. So please consider the request to at least annex in just the roadway itself. Again, this was in the Wildflower subdivision, this was part of their developer agreement. That would be the second exit, and that ended up being the primary entry and exit until they got the other one built. And it's your only way in and out. And again, if Paradise didn't prove anything to anybody, that's the one thing that it did focus on, was only one way and one way in and out. So we really have to watch if we have that availability to please process it through and consider the annexation.
Thank you, Chief. I'm sorry, any questions for the chief before he sits down from council?
No.
Okay, no. Sorry, Chief.
Mr. Damiani?
Oh, I'm Byron Damiani. I'm the executive officer of Amador LAFCO. I'm sorry, if you're speaking, you'll have to speak up a little bit. I'm having a hearing issue today, but I was able to follow most of that. There's one thing I'm here basically just to answer, I think, general questions that you might have about the annexation, if that's something you decide to go forward with. But something I need to make clear at the very beginning is if we're going to annex to take the road in there, the road does not exist as a separate parcel that can be annexed simply as a road. We basically will have to annex all of the property that road traverses. And we have to take the entire lot each time we do that. LAFCO is not permitted to take partial lots. That was done a long time ago. It created a host of problems. And the legislature finally stepped in and said, no, LAFCO is going to, if it does an annexation of a parcel, has to take the entire parcel. So that road traverses approximately 500 acres. The various parcels that go through there, I've got a very rough map I could send around to you as it wanders through.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is what we asked for 3 months ago.
Yeah. Do we make copies of that?
So it would be a little larger annexation than there isn't a way to simply take the road. I was talking to Public Works this morning at the county, and it's basically an easement road. They would be happy to turn over maintenance to you if you want to take it over. If it's an issue of maintaining the road, expanding the road, doing something to improve access, the county would certainly be open to an MOU if that was a route that you wanted to take. If you want to pursue annexation, we literally have to annex all of those
500
lots
acres.
that the road goes through. And most of them are substantial. I mean, there are a couple smaller parcels, but a lot of them are 40, 60, 100-acre parcels.
So it's not free.
No.
Yeah.
The other
Can we
thing
get
we would
copies
need
of
to
that?
do with that is we would have to update your municipal service review, which will take some time. But that can be done, and the city generally has most of the information that we need to update that. Part of the issue is where Wildflower is now, it's the city limit and it's also the sphere of influence limit. So we have to expand your sphere, which is not a big issue most of the time. But we would have to do a bit of work to update the municipal services review, which would have to be updated before you could do the annexation. The last one we had was in 2014. So I don't mean to throw cold water on it. It's not an impossible project, but it's going to be bigger than simply taking the exact area where the road is occupied, because we're just not able to do that.
Makes sense.
So we would have to annex in all of the property up to 88.
That the road goes through, yes.
Not,
There's
Well,
one small,
Brickyard doesn't go all the way to
Well,
88.
It goes to.
It goes to the Buena Vista.
Buena Vista right there. But on the
Shortcut.
other side, it goes, oh, that's 124.
right?
Yeah.
So then your new property limit for the city would, your new property line would go down to the whatever the most lower properties are there that are involved. We would simply follow those limits on those properties to have a new city limit. We would probably expand your sphere somewhat beyond that. You would need, probably the first step would be to pre-zone this. You'd have to figure out how this is going to fit into your general plan, what the zoning would be for those parcels for any ultimate development.
This map here, George, where did it come from? Ken, Chief? Is that your map?
That came from the city general plan that I'm speaking of, so it's
Okay.
already been addressed in past.
I was just wondering what the,
And as far
two
as our
green
municipal services,
marks
we were
are.
told very clearly, we already provide all the services out in that area, completely right now.
Right.
Fire, police, medical, I mean, we're the only closest, portion out there.
it should be billing.
And this came from the Board of Supervisors to us as an offer, so I'm kind of confused as to how LAFCO is now changing it around the other way.
When you
So-
perform services out there, do we bill the county for those
No, we
services?
do not. The rarity of services out there is, I mean, it's not that much, so it's more of a, it would cost us more to do billing in most cases. Yeah. But it does provide the highest protection for your property, where you're out in the wildflower.
Gosh, I just don't know if we have the manpower.
So if on your map,
Mhm.
this parcel right here,
Yes.
because it traverses it even just on the edge of it, that property would also be included.
We would confirm that. I haven't run the title on these. This is what I've pulled off of county planning, did these on GIS maps, and these are also from the county assessor's maps. So it looks like that road just ducks in along the edge. If for some reason it was actually on the other property and didn't touch that, then we wouldn't have to take it. So we would confirm that. But
Pabco owns
I'm
that
just kind of
property.
showing you the larger case if we would have to do that.
Okay.
I think Pabco owns the one that says, does that say Frederick or Frederick? Firebrick? Yeah,
Friedrich is Muddox, that company you're talking about. US Mines is top left. Next one down is US Mines. All the way to the bottom is US Mines. And the one to the right is the 104 boys. I call them,
Yeah.
what they call 104 group.
So I think ultimately it really depends what the city wants this road for. I mean, if it's truly an access issue that's going into that development, it might make more sense for you to talk to county about doing an MOU. If it's something where you think that your general plan is trending to going south and going to that area anyway and taking it over, then at some point you plan on annexing it, then it makes sense to go forward and annex. I mean, they're just different possibilities. You have to weigh what policy it is you're really interested in right now.
Hmm. Like,
Some comments when.
yeah, okay, we'll take public comment on this item.
Yes, and I can, give cards for you. Further questions that come up.
Mhm. Thank you.
Contact me.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Don't leave yet.
Yeah, don't run
leave.
away.
No running away.
It's just larger than I think you were anticipating.
I have one question for the gentleman here. Can they make a landowner go into the city? I heard they can't.
I'm sorry, say that
If
again.
LAFCO cannot make a person's private property go into the city.
Well, it goes a lot easier if we have 100% landowner participation. There is a protest proceeding that's available after that if a landowner is objecting to it. We'd have to look and see if that could be something that could be done. We haven't run into that situation in such a long time. There are sometimes people who do not want to be in the city. And that could be a stumbling block in there. Most of the time, to be honest with you, if it's a situation where you approach the landowner and say you can be annexed into the city, you can be eligible for city services. And if you were going to do this on your own, you'd have to go through LAFCO and bear the cost, but the city is going to bear the cost of the annexation and you get to come in for free. Most of the time, landowners are willing to go forward with that.
Thank you.
Is the county gonna close the road?
Who knows? The county, sorry.
Is the
We've
county
heard,
gonna abandon
well,
that
this is
road?
public comment. We can't get in a back and forth.
Is the
um,
county gonna abandon that road?
That's our question.
I don't think they can because that's a fire road. The only thing, one thing they can do is they can put fire gates on that road, on that section to the highway. And a fire gate is you bump it with your car and it'll go open and you can keep going. Because I think the state law says you have to have a two ways in and out, and you can close it, but you have to put a gate on it so you can go out. They had to do that up in Jackson and a certain bunch of places. So that's one thing to look into if the county's gonna abandon it.
We could have a
So-
conversation with our new council or the supervisors.
Because that's what it's used for now, the way everybody sounds, it's a fire road, so. And that's one thing I always say. When the city does subdivisions, nobody thinks down the road. This subdivision out there should have had a one way in and one way out. And it should have been on the contract where they had to have it. But if the county closes it down and you can't get it, you're gonna just have to make a fire road through Howard property. And how you do that is, like I said, you make a road and you put a fire gate. If there's a fire, you can go through it to get out. In the county, and I'm surprised that county would even close it because they're very strict on that. I've been on some deals where people want to build a subdivision. There's only one way in, and they won't give it to them because there's no way out. So I'd go up to the county and find out if they're going to abandon that road or not, because we really don't have the money to take care of it, because we can't even take care of our own streets in Ione. So thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Any other public comment on item number 1?
Mayor, if I can go back in time, Board of Supervisor Richard Forrester came to us back in the early 2000s, advising us that the county wanted to abandon and close this road. That's where this discussion has started, and it's taken this long. And we were reapproached recently regarding it, that this is pretty much the last chance we get before they make the decision. So that was the information that I've been given regarding this, and that's why it was brought before you.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose this and have to come back and fight for it again when it's completely plowed over and we had our chance to get it for free or sign an MOU or some type of agreement. You know, I give my heart and soul and life to this city to make sure everybody's safe, and I'm not going to recommend something that we don't need. And yes, we might not be able to maintain it right now, but the future is unlimited for us. And we have to think about that but mainly about the safety of our citizens.
Thank you, Chief. Well, it sounds like there's an alternative with an MOU. I think more conversation needs to be had with the county and maybe our new
I would recommend that you kick it back to me and
supervisor.
some more information. Follow through.
I got a couple of comments. Number one, Modocs 25 years ago offered the city of Ione that piece of property. City of Ione turned it down, which would have been most of this road, except for the little bit at the end. So I definitely would like to annex in all of the parcels, okay, and get the road at that time. It looks like this is a big project. This is why we asked for information 3 months ago. We asked for who were the property owners, and you know, what it was all zoned for. I'm hearing one person at the county has made the offer, but the county hasn't made the offer. So we need to know, is the county doing this or is that Richard Forster? So I'm only hearing Richard Forster. I'm for taking the road along with the rest of the property, so I am for that. We talked about it in general plan that, you know, we could have had, the triangle's an important piece of property. It gets us frontage on 88, which would really be a boom for sales tax for the city of Ione. So if we're going to annex this in, I think we should do the whole thing. I think if you take something that maybe the county wants to get rid of right now because it's a burden, and the road is, as Andy says, really badly maintained, and we don't maintain the roads we already have. If you take the road without the rest of the property, then you've lost all your leverage. They want to get rid of the road. We want to get the triangle, so we should be able to make something work out. So this is not a simple case of taking the road. Even if we were to decide to take the road tonight, it looks like you're going to have to take 4 or 5 parcels, as Mr. Demiani said. How long does that take? What about if the property owners don't want to give up their property? I mean, usually, as Mr. Demiani says, it's a benefit to be in the city because you get the city services, makes their property more valuable. So I'd like to look at exploring taking all of the parcels in the triangle, which is 104, 124, and 88, that triangle there. So that looks like it's pretty much what you would need to take in order to get the road. But there looks like there's a few more on the corner there. And, you know, do this thing properly. So get the road, get the entire property, and do it that way. I think taking the road is, if it's a real fire concern, it looks like maybe you could take a part of the road. It looks like part of the road only goes through 2 parcels instead of 5. So, I mean, you could look at that as well. So what about if we take part of the road, and how many parcels does that involve? So I think there's just way more questions to be answered than just simply deciding tonight on where we're taking the road. I agree, it'd be great to get the road for fire protection reasons, but it's definitely not something that, you know, you just can't take the road. So there's a whole bunch of baggage that goes with it. And it's unfortunate that the county didn't tell the chief that when they made the proposal. I mean, that should have been up front. Look, here, if you want the road, this is what you got to do, instead of finding it out 4 months later. So anyway, that's my comments.
I'm with Dominic. If we're going to annex the properties, we might as well annex it all the way out to 88 and give us some 88 frontage that has the potential to give us some increased revenue, and that is what we need. So I'm all for that.
I agree. I'm for annexing and getting the road and the properties. I agree to table it until we all have the same information, proper information.
Well, that's not the question right now. It's just comment. So Stacy, you're in favor of moving forward and getting more information?
No, getting more information so you know what you're talking about.
Okay. We're not quite ready for public comment yet. And didn't we just have public comment?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Did you close public comment?
I did close public comment.
Right. Well, we need way more information than
Yeah.
what we've got here to do today to
Because
do
you
anything.
just handed us
So,
quite a bit that no one told us.
yeah. So,
So, you know, we need to explore,
Didn't
we need
expect-
to talk to the county. We need to understand what an MOU would mean if we want to go that route.
Right.
We need to look at what's the potential cost if property owners say no.
Right.
This
No, I
isn't,
know I'm hitting you with a lot today. I didn't
Yeah.
expect you'd be making a decision on
great.
this,
Great.
obviously. But so as I said, if you have questions, please call me. But again, there are ways to, as you said, if you took 2 parcels and ended an MOU for part of it or something like that, I'm trying to think of other ways that we can get to the result. That's why you have to determine what is the ultimate result you really want. If you're not planning on having the city's general plan go down there and eventually incorporating that into the city or developing it, and you really just want road access, an MOU may be a better option to do. If that's the path of growth for the city anyway, then at some point it probably would have been annexed anyway. So, but those are again, the policy choices that I think that you're looking at this point.
Okay.
The county would be happy to turn it over because they're obviously not maintaining it. I've driven the road. The last half of it is more potholes than pavement. But again, they would be happy to have an agreement where you maintained it and had access because it simply takes something off their bucket list.
Okay. Thank you.
So
So I guess-
I would like to see city manager come back with what the process is for the annexation. What the process is if any of the property owners do not want to be part of the annexation and what the steps are for that. And what the costs are for the actual annexation of the property. I would also like to see what an MOU looks like. What kind of an MOU is the county proposing and, what kind of cost is that to the city? That would be what I would like to see.
Let me add on to that. I'd like to see if we only annexed the first parcel, this one here, 52,000, because it looks like, and this is just not a, great map, but it looks like if you just got this parcel here, then you could get to Foothill. Perhaps, I don't know. So what would that look like if we just annexed this parcel? Because that would seem to be the fastest route to get the road, if that's the way the council goes. If you just annex that first parcel, what does that look like? And then I also want to know, is the county planning on abandoning the road? Because we have access to it now and we can use it now for free. And what's their process for abandoning the road? I mean, they can't abandon the second way into a development. They just can't do that, as far as I know, but I'm not a lawyer. So I'd like to know what the rules for that are. Because they can't just threaten, well, we're going to close it unless you take it, which is what I'm hearing. I think that that's not allowed. So I'd like to find out about that as well. Thank you very much.
Well, and what does close it mean? Does it mean they're not going to maintain it? Well, so be it. That's what they're doing now. They're not maintaining it. So it's, same day, different situation. If they're going to gate it or they're going to, put barriers in it or, what does close it actually mean? I would like to know.
It's a long list.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so direction given to staff, there's
Thank you, Mr.
no
Diamond.
action taken. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So item number 2 on regular agenda, addition of basketball courts at Perry Earl Park and necessary budget appropriation.
Miss Selena Mitchell has been working on this project and she will be doing the presentation.
Thank you. So it's been talk for quite a while to add for the potential to add basketball courts at the vacant lot adjacent to Perry Earl Park. Some money was donated to the city several years ago, I believe by Mule Creek Prison in the amount of $20,000. And there have been rumblings from different people that the prison is willing to donate more in the future, but they would like to see the money that they've already donated used for the intended purpose. So that is the reason for wanting to move forward with this item in particular. And we have received some bids from a couple of design build firms. The lowest bid was All Sport America. It was also the most comprehensive bid. and they have done work for us before. They built the existing basketball courts at Howard Park, so they're familiar with the area and that sort of thing. The bid that I've included in the packet is a fairly small court. It would be full court, meaning that there would be hoops on either side, but it's not necessarily full court size. It's more of half court size, but with two baskets. So I asked for numbers for a slightly larger court as well to provide to you. I don't have an official bid on paper, but I've included an email from All Sport America showing what they could do slightly larger and the price that would cost.
Is that the 116?
Yes.
And that's total cost?
Yes, and that is total cost with fencing. I've reserved sort of an estimated $10,000 for brushing and that sort of thing. The vacant lot is fairly level. Their bid does include grading, but it does not include brush removal. So I met with Chief Mackey, Public Works. We kind of walked through it from a fire and a Public Works perspective to look at what would need to be removed, kind of come up with a plan. So of what would work to add the basketball courts in there. So I have not reached out and gotten bids for that yet. But I wanted to just see if this is something that the council wanted to move forward and was willing to, set appropriate money for before I went out getting more bids for things like that from local contractors. So the bid that is included, or the numbers, I'm sorry, that I've include the bid from All Sport America. It includes the fencing around the perimeter of the court, which would be done by, if we use All Sport America, they utilize one of our local fencing contractors. So it includes fencing. And it also includes sidewalk, which would continue the sidewalk from the existing park all the way to the next resident, whereas right now there is no sidewalk in that space.
Well, we'd have to put out an RFP, and we've already disclosed one bid here.
I was told that if the bids came in under a certain amount, that we could just get bids that way, but I'm not sure what the threshold is.
It's
So-
50,000.
Okay,
But I do believe All Sport is also on the state list that
They are.
we do not have to
They're
go to
exempt.
bid
That's
for.
correct.
So they
They're
can be
exempt.
used,
That
which
is
is
true.
why we use them for the
Yeah,
tennis.
and
courts.
the other contractor that we got bids from is Kaya, which is also on that list.
Okay.
So
So there's no requirement for an RFP if they're on the already approved state list.
But that's also why they're 10 times more expensive, and I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's,
So I apologize that I didn't know all of those details. I am trying to just sort of pick up pieces and put it together and make a project and get it moving forward. So if I'm not following protocol,
no,
don't know about
it's,
that. I
it's
apologize.
actually, it's not your job to put the staff report together and follow anyway. Yeah, but normally we'll see 3 bids, anything over 50,000, and even under that, bids are required.
Okay.
There is a process, bidding and procurement process. So what's the action? What is the
So-
recommended
so-
action here?
So Parks and Rec Commission did approve wanting to move forward with the project. And we came up with a not to exceed number of $100,000. That would take into consideration the $20,000 donation from Mule Creek Prison as well. And so I've included the information that of the costs for the smaller and the larger court and all items that would be needed to make this a complete project. And so what we're asking for today is either approval to move forward or direction as to, do you need more information or what do you need from me to get it to move forward?
I'm always in favor of an RFP. I know they're on the list, but competitive bidding, the taxpayers brought to council to look at.
Okay.
But if other council members have a different,
We got 2 bids on this already, so we are only, if we do move forward with an RFP, then I thought that 62 was a really good price. You know, it's ballooned to 120 because of the extras,
Larger.
but it's understand. Now, the sidewalk needs to come out of a different fund than parks.
Okay.
Because, in my opinion, because that's sidewalk.
Okay.
Right? So that saves you $5,000 right there.
Sure.
So, but, I'm good either way. We did put this out to bid. We got 2 bids back. If we want to get another bid, then that's fine too. But, I don't think it'll come in under the 67, which we're having a bigger court, 79. I'm
Yeah.
in favor of moving forward with the project. You know, again, just whether we get another bid or not, I'm still in favor for it. We need to do something with our park impact fees. Okay, and this is good use of it and it's just going to get more expensive. If we wait 2 more years, it's going to be 150.
And just to let you know, the other bid that came in, I didn't even include it in here. It was
It's
more
in
than
there.
twice the
It's in
amount.
there.
Okay, but I mean, from the other company, it was more than twice the amount. So this did look overall like a very,
Let me give you a little history on this because I'm the one that started it.
okay,
Mule Creek Prison came to me about 5 years ago and wanted to donate a bunch of money to the town. And I said, well, let's start on a little project. And at the time, Parks and Rec wanted a basketball court where you're talking. So we thought about it. So I called a local contractor that's a disabled vet, which means you have to hire him, which is wonderful. And I said, give me a quote on grading it, putting asphalt down, because you don't put concrete on outdoor basketball courts. Anyone that plays it will tell you it screws their knees up. So use asphalt, it's cheaper. He would stripe it and he was going to pull the hoops out of that court out there at Howard Park, install them there and convert that into either a pickleball court or just make it all tennis. I knew you'd like that, Dan. So anyhow, the bid or the quote came from this guy and I said, don't be my friend, just quote me normal to do this. And it was $10,500. That was no fence, but that was taking again, to pave it, to stripe it, everything, put those hoops out there. When I went to Mule Creek and told them, they said, okay, well, we know how the government works, so we're going to double it. So they gave us a check for $20,500. I got a picture of it somewhere and it says right on it basketball, because I knew the minute I gave it to the city, they were going to try and take it and use it for something else. So I still have it on my phone. So that's what that is for.
Okay.
So fast forward, managers change, whatnot. And then one of the city managers said it was going to cost like, I think it was like $60,000 just for an engineer to design the thing.
right.
Well, a full basketball court, anyone can get on Google and get the drawings. And by the way, the guy that got the bid from builds most of the basketball courts for all the schools, and that's what he does. So I think that we definitely need to put it out to bid. This company that you got is correct. That they can build it. They don't need bids. You can just, that's what they do, but they just charge you. That court out there costs probably 4 times as much as what that should have cost. And it's already falling apart, as you know. The floor is destroyed and whatnot, but you're doing good work. But I'm just telling you, that's the history of how this
Thank you.
has become.
Yes. Great.
And it's really sad that you're right. Mule Creek wants to do more and more stuff, but they're so like, why would we do this when it's taken you guys 5 years to try and do this thing that was supposed to have been done, 5 years ago? So that's the history of it.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if you give, Selena the name of that gentleman, that's the 3rd bid. So if
I
you
can do
still have
that.
it, yeah, that'd be great.
However.
Hopefully
you'd
it's
like
still
to proceed.
$10,000.
It's probably double that now, but
That's still a great deal.
So we're not going to put it out to a public bid. Is that what I'm hearing?
We could, and he can bid on
you
it.
can, he can bid on it.
Exactly. Let's try to follow policy.
Yep.
Put it out to a public bid like we're supposed to do. And everybody is free to put in a proposal.
And I think you should, have to listen to me. I'm not a basketball player. I don't play sports. I'm not good at it. But everyone I talk to that plays basketball outside does not want to play in concrete. It's brutal on them. That's what I hear.
Okay.
And again, asphalt's much cheaper. So
Okay, so let's open it up to public comment.
Good evening. I am Fern Day, Vice Chair of our Parks and Rec Commission. I wanted to provide some more background on this project. It was about 8 years ago that ACRA had a public meeting out at Evelyn Bishop Hall and asked Ionians what they wanted. And one of the most heard wants was basketball in Ione. Since then, basketball has been added to Howard Park. However, 8 years ago, and still, basketball was wanted on the other side of Highway 124, where it is the most densely populated with residents. So right now, we still feel, the Parks and Rec Commission still feels that basketball court on that side of town is very warranted for the safety of children accessing a walkable courts. What else? It would basically expand Perry Earl Park. The commission has recommended that part of the bushes be removed so that it's a true expansion where you could have children playing on the playground, but still be able to see older children playing basketball. So we, as a commission, have explored this numerous times. We've met on site at Perry Earl and the vacant lot next to it. We voted unanimously that this be moved forward. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Fern.
Just what she said is true. I'm Dan Traxler. I'm the chairman of Parks and Rec Commission. One other thing that we have also talked about is when you remove those trees that separate Perry Earl Park from that vacant lot, you also remove the bathroom that the children have been using for years. Not only just the boys, but the girls also. So there's going to be something that's going to come down the road. Also, that park is used by on almost a daily basis by senior citizens who are over there working out, who have no place to go to the restroom either. So that's been part of our discussion also. So that's going to be something in the future, not tomorrow, not the next day, not next week, but it's going to be something in the future. Something for our citizens to use and for those kids to actually, instead of going in the bushes, going to the bathroom, because that's all there is, maybe have some place where they can actually relieve themselves. So it's something that we've been working on and discussing and down the road. Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Jody Maida. I would like to encourage you guys to move forward with this project. I think it's the delay status on these things take too much time. I have a vested interest because I'll be joining you soon, and I'd like to start to get things to move along a little quicker. I like Stacy's idea very much. What's it going to hurt to contact his person? I like what Don mentioned. I think it's a great idea. That's a good place to start. If we just right off the bat say we're going to go out for an RFP, how long is that going to take? We would know within a week whether or not Stacy's guy could even give us a chance to bid on this project. And maybe we can move something along quicker at a cheaper price, like Dom said, and like Stacy said also. So I would encourage you guys to just delay this RFP decision and to go out and move forward, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. The problem with not doing an RFP is someone can come in and say, I didn't get an opportunity to bid at that job, and they sue us. So an RFP is 30 days. Get the RFP in here. Chances are it's going to be the same people, but
He's welcome to bid.
Welcome to bid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, what we can speed it up, you know, the minute we get that RFP in, open it up, have it right there on the agenda. Yeah. I think we all. Uh-huh. Anyone on Zoom for public comment?
No.
Okay, close public comment. Council?
Well, I think we are moving forward. We're gonna do an RFP. That's 30 days. Hopefully we can start in 31 days. Hopefully we can get some bids in prior to the 30 days if
Yeah.
we get people, make some calls, but, yeah, we're all moving forward. We haven't said no. It's been 8 years, 5 years, a long time. Like to get this open in the spring would be really nice. So I make a motion that we move forward with this, we get an RFP and we move forward with this project.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Those opposed?
No.
So George, you will,
I'll put on RFP.
And I'll get you the contractor's name, George.
Okay.
okay, moving on to item number 3, purchase of sand for Ed Hughes Memorial Arena and necessary budget appropriation.
Selena will be giving this initial report, and then Ms. Mackey also have some additional comments she'd like to make.
Hello again, Selena Mitchell, Parks and Rec. Okay, so at our last Parks and Rec Commission, well, let me back up. The city recently put together an ad hoc arena committee for the arena at Howard Park. And the committee will help us make decisions until we get something more permanent in place, such as an arena manager or a leasing the arena, whatever decision happens, and that situation takes place and is permanent, then the ad hoc committee will possibly, to my understanding, back, make steps backwards. But for now, we are relying on them to advise us how to move forward with the arena. There are many things that they've suggested that are needed at the arena to optimize the use of the arena. But the one thing that they said was most important was sand. The most areas in the arena need sand for the horses to warm up and all of those things. And it's been several years. I believe Andrea said it was 9 years since we've had fresh sand. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm just going by the information that I've been told. But so sand is needed, and I have on the second page of the staff report, it looks like we need 814 yards of number 2 washed sand. This is estimated at 32 truckloads, $7 per yard, with an additional $100 per load delivery, which totals the amount of $8,898. This is an estimate and of course could vary. We're hoping to get it for less than that, of course. It could cost a little more if we're trucking it in from somewhere further away. Several people have mentioned that one of the mines may be willing to donate sand, and all of those are wonderful avenues that we will absolutely explore. But for now, I was told that it was a priority and something that we needed to get done as quickly as possible. So Parks and Rec Commission did approve moving forward with bringing it to you, requesting a budget appropriation in the amount of up to $10,000, not to exceed $10,000 for the purchase of sand for the arena.
I'm gonna just help you out here because the history on it. Actually, sand was brought in by US Mine and trucked in by Rick Kreth in 2021. When all the work was being done out there just recently, all of that sand disappeared. Oh. It was in the warm-up pen. I think it was about $10,000 worth of sand that US Mine donated. But when they went to clean out that big drainage ditch that would flood that area, they raised the warm-up pen and they used that red clay, which is not good for horses.
Okay.
It's concrete. It's not good for anybody, especially when you fall down on it and when it gets wet. So that's what they were discussing. And then because I was there, they discussed maybe adding some sand to the arena because it packs. You get some water on it, you work it, get a bunch of horses in there, they pack it because there's clay in that dirt as well. And then the committee, and I just don't know if this has gotten this far. I know that they're still talking about the caretaker agreement. My understanding is this committee, who you know, you've met them all, has volunteered to manage everything for the city free of cost.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, the calendar, all of it. So the city doesn't have to. That's been the proposal.
Okay.
So my understanding is they're not going to go away. They want to continue to help.
Okay.
That's what they said. So council questions?
Yeah, US Mine would be happy to probably donate most of the sand. Our question was, who calculated the volume? 32 trucks is a lot of sand.
I got that information from Mr. Gold. I can't remember his first name. I
Jeff.
apologize. Thank you.
Can you run a tape measure?
Yeah.
I'll talk to them about it because that's a lot of sand.
Okay. They brought maybe 10 loads
Okay.
and it was a lot.
Okay.
But there also wasn't, a foot of red clay
Mhm.
at that time. So
Okay.
that might be why Jeff said that.
And there may be more areas. I'm not familiar
think
with
so.
the arena. I don't really
Yeah.
know what all the different areas are called, but that was just the advice that he gave to Parks and Rec Commission that we needed that amount.
Yeah.
And it was needed no matter what we decided to do, no matter how we decided to manage it, that it was needed at the arena just to operate through winter.
Jeff has pro rodeo visions.
Okay.
So
He's a good friend of mine, so I can pick on him. I'll get together with him and we'll double calculate and I will talk to the president of US Mines and see if we can probably get you the sand, but probably not the trucking.
Perfect.
But Ms. Mackey had some comments as well. Ms. Mackey?
Good evening, council. I just wanted to make mention a few things dealing with the finances for the city, looking at grants and other type of revenue things so that we can continue to build that. In the past and working with the arena where we did have sand brought in and we did have to remove a lot of it and then we put more back in. And we talked with different committees who were working on it. And then we also had other venues out there for motorcycle events. And I believe a couple weeks ago, Selena, was it rented for a motorcycle event? Okay. I think I saw that on the calendar. I'm not sure if it did go through. But my point is that for our equestrian arena, and it's different for all different types of horse events, is to make sure that when we move forward, that there is a vision for what is out there. And that's something that council is supporting, is moving in that direction. So that when we do put sand or whatever type of footing in there, that is going to carry forward with what the plans are for it. And when I say plans, meaning the financial revenue that the city is looking forward to. So developing a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan for the arena, I would like to see and work with the committee on so that we can have a collective vision and we'll know what type of revenue streams that may be coming in, make those contacts, get that support in there, people to potentially invest in it so that we can build the arena. We've had managers in the past and a lot of great ideas, a lot of things went really well, but to be able to have that information on paper for planning purposes and having a strong vision so that we can continue and we have something that we can go back to. Right now, we have a beautiful equestrian center that needs some work, but where it's going to go, we're not quite sure. I did a little research on Rancho Murrieta, and that is an amazing place. Now, in a recent conversation I had, I can't remember, was it $350,000 to bed the arena? is it about $350,000 for that, for each one of their arenas, and it's not sand, it's like a cloth type thing. So not saying that we're going to go that direction, but it would be great to have the conversations with individuals who are looking at our arena and not short selling the city of Ione, looking at the potential that we have and working towards that vision. And so before we move forward and just, free sand is fantastic, but I'd like to work with the committee and develop something before we start on a project, and then we have a change of course. So
So
thank you.
you want us to hold on the sand while you do that?
Well,
Or is that what you're talking about?
You've got to make a decision whether you're going to go Western or English, because what
correct.
you're referring to is English footing.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying. And that's why I'm saying to have a plan. If there is, like tonight's the first time I've heard about Pro Rodeo Dreams. That's a direction, but we have nothing on paper to say that.
I think your
So-
committee, your
Right.
committee members
Mhm.
cover every genre and horse discipline. I mean, you couldn't have gotten a better committee.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And are we going to go to the equestrian way, or are we going to go,
They're
are
all
we going to go hunter
Western.
jumper, or are we going to go
They're
pro
all,
rodeo?
you got reiners, you got cutters, you got
Right.
barrel racers. They're all Western. It's all the
Right.
Western community. You've got Don and Debbie
Mhm.
who own Main Street Tack.
Right.
You've got the Gold family. Jeff and Stacy Freitas travel every weekend doing live stream videos. They're putting on a
Right.
huge barrel race in Tulare right now. I think
And
they
having
have
that vision.
1,200 barrel racers
Yeah.
are attending.
Put on paper so that we can see who's going to be coming in, what we can plan for the city, because then that's also where we can go and we can start looking for funding to get these projects done on different avenues.
It's gonna take you it's gonna take a couple years to build that arena back up like that.
Right, and that's
Well,
what I'm saying, to start in
Yeah.
that process, I can work with the committee on doing that, but
Yeah.
before we start stepping in one direction, that we do it the right way the first time, so we're not having to revisit the situation and we don't have another runoff issue where we're starting to lose the sand
So,
and things like
To
that.
to Vice Mayor Bratton's question, are you saying don't purchase the sand?
So yeah, I would say that at this point in time, I think it's premature to move forward and purchasing. I would say we can go and meet with the donation of the sand. We can get all that lined up to you, come back to you with a plan. This is where we envision the arena going. So before the city starts spending money on it, in case we do have to come back and say the free sand is not available, but this is the direction we're going to go. This is the footing that is needed for this. Here's the documentation to support all that. And then we could move forward.
Okay, so
The problem, let me just, oh, no, I'll be quiet. The problem is, this is for the warm-up pen that has no footing right now.
Mhm.
And you're moving into the winter months when the arena is the busiest. So if you don't get some sand out there, you're not going to get rentals.
Yeah, and I'm offering this as a suggestion for the council to review. If this is something that is necessary, I totally understand,
Yeah.
but I don't know what the revenue generation, again, I'm all about data and money. If I don't see the money coming in to support the $10,000 going out, and then next year we have another muddy runoff situation because something else happened, I just don't want to see us continuing to go on this cycle, and that we just move forward in the direction so that we can continue to build instead of having to do a little and then go back. Yeah, thank you.
Why don't we have Selena look into US Mines and see what is available in terms of the donation of the sand as a first step.
open it to public comment. Are we doing public comment
Yeah,
or?
let's open it up to public comment, which includes you, Dan.
Okay, I'm Dan Traxler, Chairman of the Parks and Rec Commission. This information has gone to the Parks and Rec Commission. The Arena Committee has been working diligently to figure this out. They brought it to us. We have making the recommendation to you. And anything going forward will come from Parks and Rec. It will not come from someone telling the council to do something. It's going to come from Parks and Rec. We are the ones that come to first. So the committee's made this, the Arena Committee has made this recommendation to us. They've given us all the information we needed to present it to you. That's why it is tonight. And we recommend that this be done immediately.
Thank you, Dan. Any other public comment?
Good evening, Fern Day, Parks and Rec Commissioner. To expand on what Dan has said, the Arena Committee, who I believe are very knowledgeable in the horse community, recommended to us that the sand for the warm-up arena be purchased, mostly because in order to make the arena appealing to be leased and then generate money for the city, it needed to happen. We need a process for someone to lead. And then in turn, we could start having events and generate some money. It seemed unanimous by the horse committee that this needed to happen. So, thank you.
Thank you, Fern. Any more public comment? Anyone? No? Okay, close public comment. Council?
I'm totally in support of getting the sand. It's just they don't like the price, and I find it hard to believe that most people don't know that US Mines sells arena sand all the way down to Palm Springs. It goes everywhere. It's the best arena sand there is, and you got the option to probably get it for free. So
I made a motion, we move forward with either the purchase or seeing if US Mine would be generous enough to donate sand to the arena, and also getting the amount double checked prior to the purchase or donation.
I put a do not exceed amount on your.
10,000
Okay.
Probably get the truck.
probably have to pay that for the freight trucks, yeah. Or not that much, but
Can I have
Is that a motion?
yes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I
Motion carried. Okay, last item, number 4, wastewater committee report. Catherine Geis.
Good morning, good evening.
Peace.
Thank you.
Long day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have a presentation if, there we go, pull it up. So yeah, this is just a report back from the wastewater committee meeting, that occurred on November 6th. So the topics addressed, and there was a staff report as well covering each of these items, the Title 22 report update, the water balance requirement update, discussion about the as-needed regulatory services contract, the recommended CalRIF condition assessment, an update on the cease and desist order, and then finally the rate study needs. So the Title 22 report, next slide, please. So as you are well aware, the city's been working to complete a Title 22 report for some time now. And we've discussed in the past, the big holdup was completing some instrumentation improvements at the facility so that we could complete the Title 22 report and document that the facility was in compliance with those regulations, and complete the tracer study protocol that described those improvements. So the instrumentation improvements have been done. The tracer study protocol has been submitted, and we are now in a pattern of waiting for Division of Drinking Water to approve that protocol. We should not move forward with the actual testing until DDW has said this meets our requirements. In the process of all of that happening, you are well aware the influent flow meter failed, which is another critical component to completing the tracer study. And that project is now moving forward, getting that fixed as well. On October 11th, we met with the regional board. We talked about the delays with the Title 22 report. They raised their concerns, and we said that, well, what we can do is submit a draft of the report with all the information we've developed so far, which is quite a bit with respect to the golf course and all those other things. And as a draft in January. And then once we get DDW approval, we'll move forward with the tracer study as quickly as we can, submit a revised draft at that point. Shortly following that meeting and discussion, the regional board sent another letter which reiterated their requirement that the city needs to submit the Title 22 report as soon as possible, which was a little odd since they had submitted a letter to this effect in June, with no new information in it. So out of just kind of recognizing that, the other thing that kind of came through that letter and through other communications with them is they emphasized this need for the report to be complete before it would be meeting that 13,267 requirement. The nuance of that is that for the report to be complete, Division of Drinking Water has to review and approve the entire report. Typically, that process can take 1 to even 2 years, because that's just how their backlog works. So we have one state organization, actually the same sort of state organization, one hand telling us we're very late and we need to get this done and this is a problem, and another not responding to the need to have this reviewed. So to address the issue, we submitted today a letter to the executive officer of the regional board explaining the situation, asking for a formal extension to the deadline. And next slide, please. So just shown on here are some of the past activities, the instrumentation and control improvements. Just real quick, all of the physical improvements have been made. The programming needs to be completed. That's being done by a third party, Telstar. We're still working on getting them out there. Waterstone's in charge of working on that. The tracer study itself can't be completed until DDW approves, so we're just saying in 2025. All of the BMP work, kind of wrapping up the report, that's happening with that initial draft going in January 2025. So we included that as the first milestone in the letter to the state. We said the revised draft would be submitted in January 2026. That basically gives us the ability to kind of give enough time for DDW to do the approval and then to do the tracer study itself, because we can't do it during the irrigation season. So if they don't get it approved before the spring, we can't do it till the fall. So we just wanted to make sure we had plenty of time to get that done and that we wouldn't run into a problem there. And then finally, the final Title 22 report, which meets the letter of the 13,267 requirement, will not be completed until 60 days from receiving comments from DDW. So we're not tying it to a deadline. We're tying it to DDW's response and review of the report. That went in today. We will get a response. And because it did go directly to the executive officer, we will get some sort of response to that request. Moving on to the water balance. So the city, there were 4 letters issued on August 14th of 2024 to submit water balances related to the various wastewater agencies that operate in this region. One was received for the Ione wastewater treatment plant, one for the Calriff, which includes Sutter Creek and Arsa and the golf course, then one for CDCR and Mule Creek, and then there was one letter for all the combined facilities. Those letters, the first 3 letters, required the individual water balances be submitted by December 13th of this year. And then by February 1st, all of the parties either need to commit to developing a joint water balance or transfer flows between the facilities must cease by January 1st, 2026. And if pathway A is chosen to commit the joint water balance, that water balance is due by May 1st, 2025. So at this time, the city is making great progress in terms of meeting its requirements for the December 2013 deadline. We're not concerned at all about meeting that. On the Arsa water balance, the city has to submit a document that is signed by both the city and the golf course. It says this is the demands of the golf course. And those demands are based on historical data, theoretical information, and meet all the criteria that the state requires to define what demands for a golf course would be. That's been completed. It's in the city's hand. Golf course will be reviewing it. That'll be finalized and certified within the time frame required. There's also the requirement to submit a capacity TM on the Calriff. That's a pretty straightforward document that is coming out this week for city review finalization. The water balance TM for the wastewater treatment plant is also in its final stages of review through West Jost. We're going to submit that to the city. The intent will be that the city gets that with some time to review ahead of a wastewater committee meeting planned for December 5th. We'll go over all the results with the wastewater committee on that date, get any comments we need to finalize it, and then we finalize it and submit it by December 13th. So that's the timeline for getting all that work done. In terms of the joint effort from all the agencies, so the individual water balances basically don't allow CDCR to discharge to the golf course because it's not under the permit. But this joint
letter, this joint water balance would allow that, but everybody has to agree to what those amounts are. At a recent regional board meeting, CDCR indicated that they, quote, may not need to rely on others for discharge. That was a little out of the blue. No one was expecting them to say that. And we are now having ongoing discussions. We met with ARSA today and have agreed that the next step is, as a group, we'll all meet with CDCR, try to figure out what's going on with them, and then make a path forward for both the city and ARSA and CDCR. Okay, moving on to the as-needed regulatory services. So there's been quite a bit of work required in the last 6 months that has been authorized, completed through the as-needed support services contract. So the water balances themselves, all the memos I just mentioned, developing all of that, getting all that documentation is quite a significant effort, and that has been billed against or against this project. Also, the support responses to regional board requests, and the next agenda item talks about that. They submitted a letter in June that had a laundry list of things they needed information about, and we had to generate reports related to that. Just the ongoing coordination with the wastewater committee and city council coming to these meetings, the committee meetings, those kind of things. That's a relatively minor effort overall. And you guys may recall, you know, we went a whole year and spent $25,000 mostly doing items 3, 4, and 5 on that list. So it's just these more recent inundation of requirements from the regional board that's just been taking quite a bit of effort. Again, the coordination with ARSA CDCR, relatively minor, but just kind of participating in that process. And then just ongoing coordination with Waterstone with respect to monitoring reports, things that may be going on with them. Next slide. So just to get in a little bit more detail, I don't want to go too far, but the June 3rd, 2024 letter and what that required, mostly to just give you guys an update. There was the biosolids cleanup and abatement order report that was required to be submitted related to the biosolids that was removed from the ponds back in 2019. We completed that report. It was submitted on October 22nd, and we're waiting for the regional board review. On the missing monitoring reports, most of these have been taken care of. We're working with Waterstone to wrap up the remaining items, but most of the information has been submitted. On the effluent disinfection, we submitted the documentation that was required for that, and that issue's been resolved. And then finally, with the compliance with the cease and desist order, that actually triggered the city to authorize a separate task order that was kind of older and never got initiated for the cease and desist order compliance. That was done on August 8th, which led us to submit to the regional board the request for a meeting, which was held on October 11th. And I have additional update on that later in the presentation. So long story short is we're at a position now where we've gone through the funds that were authorized back in August. We need to add more money so that we can basically continue to provide the support needed. That would include finishing up the water balance memos, presenting those to council, getting those finalized. It also would include working with the city through early next year to do a sampling program at the wastewater treatment plant and start the evaluation of the treatment capacity there, the pond capacity. So we'll get a monitoring program set up for Justin to do that. And then starting to work towards getting modifications to the wastewater treatment plant permit so that we can change the point of compliance and get hopefully to a point where we are in a better position with respect to the information that's being submitted to the regional board, documenting that there is wastewater treatment happening. The permit, the plant is adequately sized, and we're not faced with concerns about that topic. So that would kind of be what we're estimating right now $50,000, but honestly, these are just estimates because these things regional board could issue a letter tomorrow that says, we need you to do this or we need you to do that. So that is kind of where we're at right now, is just saying we're recommending that, and we're hoping that that gets us through the rest of this fiscal year. But I unfortunately can't guarantee that. And then I just put up here for your benefit, just again, we've seen this before, but this is just to remind us, there is this pathway we're going down. We have the cease and desist order, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, but there's evaluations associated with that. There's this treatment capacity evaluation, the wastewater treatment plant headworks project that's needs to be dealt with. And then ultimately, Once we address the cease and desist order, which is the issue related to the percolation basins and whether we can keep them, once we know the answer to that question, then we can start planning for the long-term future for the treatment plant. And we want to answer that question first because it will save the city money in the long run, knowing that ahead of time. So that's where we are in all of this process of the wastewater treatment plant side of things. Next slide. So on the CalRIF, next slide, please. So as you guys probably recall, back in March, the city decided to delay the project related to the SCADA replacement. There was a big project for the city. It was, you know, kind of not really the city's sole responsibility to deal with that SCADA upgrade. And we went ahead and just did the near-term improvements. But the decision was that ultimately the city does need to develop a capital improvement program for the CalRIF, right? So this facility is 30 years old. It is falling apart. Any facility, regardless of whether it's that one or any other one, any wastewater treatment plant, anywhere, you need to have a maintenance program. And when something is 30 years old, most equipment's reached the end of its useful life. So the goal with a condition assessment would be to, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead too far. So we had previously recommended, we said, okay, well, we'll delay the SCADA, but let's go ahead and like define what that control strategy looks like. And with all this pressure now to get the Title 22 report done and finalized, we've kind of said, we don't need to do that. Let's just go forward with what we have on the near term. We'll submit the Title 22 report. If DDW or someone else says this isn't good enough, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But let's get this in. So that's that reconsideration of that recommendation. And then the SCADA would be included in the larger capital improvement program, sort of this bigger long-term plan for the project. So the next slide. So the condition related improvements that I was alluding to, there's equipment replacement. The filters themselves are very old. They have a lot of backwash flow that ultimately comes to the city's treatment plant and takes up your treatment capacity. So that's an issue even for the city to rehab those and figure out a way to reduce that backwash flow. And then of course the SCADA upgrade, which is the brain of the plant and is already starting to see some failures we heard at the committee meeting with the PLC. So the signs are coming that the wheels are falling off the bus. In March of 2024, when we got the authorization to do the SCADA project, we actually did the condition assessment piece. The team went out there, already looked at like what needed to be done, but that work was stopped at that time. So what we're saying today is that in order to document that work, to say, here's the projects that need to be done, here are the costs, here's what needs to be done in the 5-year time frame, the 5 to 10 year, and then the 10-year plus in terms of risk, laying that out in a CIP, that to move that project forward, we would need to issue a task order for that. And then the goal of having that CIP development is that then that serves as the foundation now for conversations with ARSA and CDCR about if they're going to continue to discharge to the CalRIF and the golf course, what that's going to cost and how that's going to move forward, because you really need that documentation to support that negotiation. Otherwise, you're going into that negotiation with blinders on. So it's very critical to get this information at this time. So then again, this is just a reminder for the CalRIF what the critical path work are. So we have the Title 22 report and the capital improvement program if it's approved. Once the Title 22 report's done, we've got the report of waste discharge and the permit application, and that really ties also into the renegotiated agreement for who's sending flow to the CalRIF and who should be on that permit, right? All that has to feed in before we can go apply for the permit. We need to figure out who's on the permit and who's going to be on the permit for the next foreseeable future. Once all that is figured out, and in parallel with the city's planning for the wastewater plant and thinking long-term planning, the question becomes is the CalRIF part of that future plan? Does the city send flow from the wastewater plant to the CalRIF so that tertiary water can be distributed to other users and allowing the city to continue to grow and increase capacity? So when we say the facilities planning, master planning, that's what we're talking about is the CalRIF part of that future? And that's kind of a combined effort. And then implementation of those critical CIP projects, again, with that 26, 27, 27, 28 timeline being the most critical things that have to be addressed as soon as possible. Okay, cease and desist order. So again, just to remind everyone, the cease and desist order was issued about 10 years ago. It was related to the impacts of all of the ponds on the groundwater and for seepage into Sutter Creek. The city lined all of the ponds 1 through 5 in 2019, put in aeration. You also brought the city field and town field online, which basically allowed the percolation ponds 6 and 7 to really only be used for wintertime disposal. We've looked at the data, the groundwater quality data, and basically have been able to demonstrate that through the changes the city's made, you've made improvements to water quality and the appropriate measures with respect to groundwater. So we put all that information together in a report to the regional board to request a meeting that they rescind the cease and desist order. And that meeting was held on October 11th. At that meeting, they actually clarified that their concern at this point is not the groundwater quality, but it is actually the seepage into Sutter Creek, which is not really clearly spelled out in the cease and desist order. So the cease and desist order is really focused on the groundwater quality. So we said, okay, great. We can deal with that. We would like time then to evaluate 2 options. One would be to obtain an NPDES permit that would allow the seepage into Sutter Creek to occur. We don't know what that would look like. It'd be a very unique permit. It may not even be possible, but it's a question we feel we need to try to answer. The regional board seemed open to allowing us to answer that, because if that were allowed, then effectively the city would not need to invest in new infrastructure. You have infrastructure. It would just be now moving forward with a regulatory pathway. The other option, if that's not a viable pathway, is to eliminate the seepage into Sutter Creek. So you can see you've got pond 6 and pond 7 on that figure there. Pond 6 is right next to the creek. And if you can see those blue arrows and you see the direction of, that's the direction of groundwater flow. So you can see the overall direction of groundwater flow is not towards the creek. It is away from the creek. The problem is when you have percolation pond 6, which is right next to the creek, and you put water in it, locally, you're going to have seepage moving in that direction towards the creek. So what we would like to do would be to say, if we can't get permission to discharge and have that discharge to the creek, if we eliminated pond 6, is pond 7 far enough away from the creek that that local mounding that occurs isn't enough to push water towards the creek? There's maybe some mounding, but overall direction is away from the creek. We'd have to replace pond 6 with another percolation pond somewhere else, probably on the location of the city field, which really doesn't provide a whole lot of disposal capacity anyway. And basically then you would actually have the treatment ponds that are lined also separating the percolation from the creek. So you'd also have a barrier there from water moving in that direction. So based on what our hydrogeologists are saying and what we think is that would likely be a viable approach, a technical approach, but it would cost money to relocate that perk pond. So again, we'd say, let's look at both in parallel, move both tracks forward and get the regional board, get the time to do that. And then come back with a proposed plan to the regional board. So they, I would say, conceptually agreed to that at the meeting verbally. We are preparing that work plan now, and we are planning to get that in front of the board and meet with them in January of next year. And then by that time, they were also on their end going to sort of consider what their options are available for modifying the cease and desist order. Could they rescind it? What legally can they do? What can't they do with respect to the document that stands as it exists? So the idea was we're going to go back to our respective corners, do some more work, and then come back and meet in January. So next slide. So we're in November, which we are now, we're working on the work plan. We will present that to council on December 5th, or at the committee, sorry, the wastewater committee at the December 5th meeting. Just the approach to it, what we think it's going to say, make sure everybody's on the same page with that, submit the actual document to the regional board in January, meet with them in January and discuss next steps. And then in the spring, begin implementation of the work plan. And then, of course, in the meantime, continue to employ the best practices that we can to keep the impacts associated with the pond to a minimum. And that's, again, just working with Waterstone on that. Okay, and then finally, the rate study. So the council adopted this table of projects as a CIP in August 2024. There were a few notes associated with that adoption, which are noted here. So that element 3, which is the CalRIF project, which is basically a placeholder for all those CIP improvements I just mentioned, but as a placeholder, it's not a true dollar amount. But that cost may be reduced by outside funding, meaning the partners that discharge to the CalRIF would help pay for that. That refinement and amendments to the project list and costs are expected, and that the city will continue to notify grants or other funding to reduce the cost. So this was basically what was adopted. Next slide. So George asked me to have a talk with the folks that are working on the rates, Will Dan, because they had some concerns about being able to use that information to develop a rate study. So specifically what they said is that there's no timeline at this point associated with those projects, and they need to know when the projects will occur. They also need to know how those projects will be funded. Is the city going to take a loan to get those projects done? Are you going to assume grants? How are you going to pay for it other than the money that's already in your coffers, right? And then the other thing, and this was more observations that I made, was that, oh, well, there's nothing at all related to the collection system, any improvements that you may need there. It also really doesn't include any cost with like some of the upgrades and maintenance projects that might be needed, like these flow meters that are going out, right? Like how are those going to get paid for? So, next slide. So the other kind of thing is that really, the thing to emphasize here is this is really just like a short term, like what's needed in the next couple of years, like that, those projects that were identified, those are some of those, at least the wastewater treatment plant projects, are things that have been put off for 10, 15 years. They just can't wait any longer. But there's also, as I've been saying, we've been talking about now for a while, that there is a true longer term, set of projects out there. Relocating Pond 6, maybe away from the creek, maybe connecting the wastewater treatment plant to the CalRIF, maybe sending tertiary water to other users. There's other things that are coming to give the city what it needs for the next 20 years from a capacity standpoint. And those have to be defined in this process that we've laid out, this next 3 to 4 year process. So the idea with this first rate increase is really just a bridge so that you can start having money coming in, you can start moving some of these critical projects forward. But ultimately for the CalRIF, what we have to do is we have to do that condition assessment. We need to develop that CIP list. We need to develop the agreement with the partners and figure out who's paying for that to really know what the CIP is for the CalRIF. For the wastewater plant, we need to complete the water balance and the pod capacity analysis, which we're working on now. We need to complete the studies related to the cease and desist order next year. Then we need to define what the long-term capacity needs are, and then ultimately develop a plan on how you're going to provide wastewater treatment for all of the growth anticipated in the city in a 20-year timeframe. That will define your future CIP. So what these near-term rate adjustments are needed are really to define like what are the most critical path projects that were in that adopted CIP. So really that headworks and that influent pump station, that project that's been kicked down the road for a long time needs to move forward. It can't wait for all this planning another 3-4 years. The city also needs to fund these planning and permitting studies. These are not inexpensive efforts. And especially when you start coordinating with other agencies and trying to figure out a real long-term strategy, it takes time and money to do that. And then finally, you need near-term rate increases because you're having equipment failures, you're having pipeline failures, you're having problems that are happening that you don't have the money to cover. So where does that leave us? We need to come up with something that the rate experts can use to develop a rate program. So what George and I had talked about and what we kind of recommend would be to present an approach to them that would say, okay, all of the wastewater treatment plant projects, not the CalRIF projects, but the wastewater treatment plant projects that were adopted in that CIP will be completed over the next 3-year period, and they will be funded through a state revolving loan process. First. Second assumption, a small percentage of the CalRIF projects that need to be completed will be funded by the city, because you're the receiver of the recycled water, you're a partner in that. Now, what percentage that is, maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 20%. We can kind of play with that number, but a small percentage of that cost does get borne by the city. Then we say, we understand that some of the work could be funded other ways. Grant money may be out there and maybe we can go get that grant money. And if that grant money comes in, that just means that those rates that are coming in can be deferred and they can pay for some of those longer term projects. But there's work out there. There's no risk in, you can't wait to make a decision to see if you get the grant funding, I guess is what I'm saying. Because you could be waiting forever. Because there's no guarantees on grant money. The second key assumption would be, let's establish a yearly allocation budget for collection system improvements and maintenance. We don't know what that is, but if the city is struggling to, if something were to fail and you're not sure how you would pay for it, like, let's have some money in the budget to be able to make those improvements. And again, we can decide what that amount is every year that should be available to be able to make improvements. And then similarly for the wastewater treatment plant. So if a flow meter goes out, the electrical panel goes out, whatever it is, there's money available to pay for those projects. The way we would approach it, we'd say, okay, let's assign dollar amounts to those. Let's assign that approach. We hand that over to the rate experts. Then what they would do is they would basically take that, run it through their rate model, and then they'd say, all right, well, if those are your set of assumptions, this is what your rates would be. And then we can say, those are way too high. There's no way I can deal with that. Or that sounds great. Let's go for it. Who knows, right? But if it is too high, we can modify the assumptions. We can say, well, maybe we don't need that much in the yearly budget. Maybe we can, fund this some other way. Those are decisions we can make, but we have to move them forward to get to that point to be able to even have that conversation because they are stuck in the water right now. So ultimately, the final rate approach and proposed rates would be brought to city council after we go through this iterative process that and I imagine we would be talking to the wastewater committee about what we're hearing and then come back at some point to say, this is what the rate. So there's no action required today. We're not saying we're raising the rates. We don't even know what the number is. We're really just looking to confirm the staff direction to initiate this iterative process so we can get something going on this very critical item. So, in conclusion, there are two task orders that have been raised today. They were not, I understand, attached to the packet, so they're not being put forward for approval today. George has indicated he would bring them to the next council meeting, but today is your opportunity to ask any questions about them so that when you see them on the next meeting, you can approve them with joy, hopefully. And finally, on the additional confirmations, just confirming again the direction to develop this iterative process so we can get the rate study moving. And then just announcing the next wastewater committee meeting where we will be talking about the water balance results and the CDO work plan approach.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine.
I'm disappointed that those are not included.
Well, the whole point of your presentation today
Was
was for those items to be brought to us and discussed and
Now we have to do it
action
again.
made on.
I have some questions.
That's very disappointing.
Absolutely. Fire away.
I was under the impression that Wildan did a capacity study.
A capacity.
I still think they're working on it right now.
No, they submitted it to the city.
Is that
So that was the the part of the leak document, but that's what has been, we're on retainer for the capacity.
Oh, so Wildan was asked to complete a capacity study and they submitted a report.
Right. So, yes, Wildan did, I was part of the LEAP project, where they did come in and they did a portion of it. It was not complete. And so that's why when we went to, the information was from 2008, 2009. I know that we reviewed the report, but we needed more, of the collection system done.
No.
Have
We'd
you?
like to see that.
Okay.
Because my
Okay.
understanding, it was completed and the city was built. And it was a recent sewer capacity study and took into consideration the new developments and so forth. So it was a
Okay.
current
So I don't recall that being part of that, but did you read through the document?
I will just say, I read the documents and I would not classify them as a complete capacity study. They were
Okay.
information.
We need
available.
clarification then, because I believe it was close to $20,000.
It was $17,500 for the document, and it was titled not as a study, but as a memo. I don't have the information
A
with me.
memo, a $20,000 memo.
Yeah, it was a memo of a.
Can we see it?
Absolutely. I will send that to the city manager tomorrow, and then you can review it. But yes, it was
Okay.
17,500.
My understanding is George did receive a copy as well.
Maybe I can.
Yeah,
can
that'd be great.
Clarify my point is that, so I mean, it was really just a review of available documents. It wasn't like an independent assessment of capacity. So when I talk about doing a capacity study of the wastewater treatment plant.
I understand.
Completely
You don't have
different
to
thing.
Explain it all.
Okay. Making
I
sure.
just know that a capacity study was asked of our city engineer. They submitted one the day before the LEAP grant came before council. And it was never mentioned. So I've not seen it. And
Yeah.
I know that you mentioned capacity in here, so I just want to throw that out. We don't need to go into it.
Okay. Fair enough.
And then
So what, well, but
it sounds like we're trying to be
comment?
potentially water brokers, which the term I've heard before.
Oh, with the CalRIF?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to approach a new agreement with the partners, and I think that needs to be worked out. But I think that is
Down
going to
the
take
road.
some time. Yeah.
My last comment is, I'd like to see the regional partners step up with some. I don't want to see the Ione taxpayers funding all of this.
Yep.
Because
Absolutely.
I have a feeling what they're going to do is they're going to stall. We're going to put the money out there. I'm not in favor of a loan. And then they're going to come back and put demands on us and think they can do what they've done in the past.
Yeah, I do want to clarify that I'm only talking about a loan for projects at the wastewater treatment plant, nothing for the CalRIF. So only a loan to get to move forward the headworks in the influent pump station at the wastewater treatment plant. That one project that's been
Yeah.
sitting out there for quite some time.
And we're not part of the wastewater committee. I feel like,
you're the final arbitrator, though. This council is the
I
final
understand that.
arbitrator.
but this is a lot of information for us to take in.
Totally.
And I feel like I'm just approving task order after task order after task order.
It is a lot of,
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
It is,
it's a
and
lot.
we've already exceeded the last task order.
Yes.
We're not planning very well, are we?
Well, I think, like I said, the regional board, when they issue these letters.
Yeah, that's
We don't have,
sketchy.
yeah, we just don't, there's nothing we can do. We have to respond to them, and usually it's within a timeline.
Right.
Yeah, regional board moves the bar every time. The discussion about
Can't
the
challenge
season, no. When I first started on council, that was exactly what I said. Said, well, why do they get to do that? Well, because they get to do that.
Right.
I've come to just
Horrible.
accept that, unfortunately. But they also, with the cease and desist order, I mean, they moved the bar. I mean, they basically said, oh yeah, well, we're really not interested in everything that we dinged you for on that cease and desist. We want you to do this now, and we're not going to move this cease and desist until you do this now. So it's like they keep moving the bar, and we keep trying to
Dancing
get
around.
this. Well, we really don't have any other option but to be in compliance with them.
Right. And I think it's just, yeah, it's a very, it's
a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And I think, I think that
I don't know where we.
I think the reality is that, the way the regional board sees it is, there's a 10-year-old cease and desist order that hasn't been complied with. There's these things that haven't been
I
done.
understand, and this council's bearing the brunt of.
Past decisions.
I get it.
Exactly.
We can,
So-
other council comments, clarifications.
I was gonna comment, for everyone this is how it works, is you're in violation of discharging into the creek, but if you get a permit, it's okay. So this is the type of thing that we're dealing with. You know, it's not really hurting anything, because if you get a permit, it's okay. So unfortunately, you know, if we want to be in compliance, because you keep hearing all the scary stories, oh, we're out of compliance. So if you want to be in compliance, you got to pay for it. And this is where we're at. So every time somebody turns in the city to the regional board and they find out that we're out of compliance for something, there's a cost associated to that. I think we should, you know, I'm for getting a loan, because we've got these projects hanging out here since 2008. So we can either sit here and complain that we're out of compliance or whatever, or keep turning people in for being out of compliance, or we can fix the problem. So fixing the problem, there's two ways you can do it: jack up the sewer rates, or you can get a loan and the sewer rates go up a little
Or get
bit.
the regional partners.
So, well, no, I'm talking,
That's on that.
I'm talking about for wastewater.
Straight up wastewater.
That's straight up, yeah. And, you know, how we do a rate study and 3 years later, someone finds out that collections wasn't part of the rate study, is, I don't even understand how that gets that far. So, I think Kathy's done a great job. Unfortunately, we're on this train ride that we can't get off because the regional board's driving the train, and they turn around and say, now you got to do this, so we have to do it. What we should have done was build a new tertiary plant back in 2012 when we looked at the one in Mountain House, but we didn't have the money. So there you go. The interconnection project, I think, is still big, because 20 years ago it was $25,000 to do that. Now it's 300,000. 10 years down the road, it'll be $1 million. I mean, we have to have the flexibility of taking our sewer water and putting it through the tertiary plant. We don't know if CDCR is going to be a partner. We'll know in February, I guess, right? That's their deadline. So all this brouhaha about CDCR may not even exist in 3 more months. And all the money we spent going after CDCR. So everything's always changing. I think we need to, I thought tonight we were going to vote on the $50,000. That was what the whole point of the presentation was. We need to, you know, we have to keep moving this thing forward and making smart decisions. We can't just keep kicking it down the road and the prices go up.
So there's no action to be taken because
it's not on the agenda.
Do you need direction on the rate study assumptions?
not in the stock.
I think it's a, I don't know that we need direction unless you want to give it. I think that we've sort of have a proposal forward, if that sounds great, to start that process, and then we will continue the conversation. But if there's something in that approach that you're opposed to, then we should know that.
Okay.
And then I guess I do want to make one comment if I can, Dominic. In order to get a permit for discharge to the creek, for those that are concerned about that, we would have to document that there's no impact. Like that's the hurdle. So it's not that it's just go get a permit. We actually have to go through that process.
They
So
want to know what's going in there.
yeah, they would want to know, and we'd have to document that there's no water quality impacts and it's in compliance with all of the MPDS standards, which are fairly high standards for any wastewater treatment plant discharge. So it wouldn't just be go get a piece of paper and pay money. Just so we're clear.
So
Yeah, I know you do. I just wanted to make sure the audience got that.
Well, and the process for that is, can be up to a 3-year process before you're going to
could.
get that approved.
It could, that's right. And I think that at some point we may have to, depending on how that conversation goes, it may just become let's just move pond 6 and be done with it. And it's going to be a parallel track. It's going to be both at the same time and figure out which one makes the most sense. My sense is if the NPDS seems straightforward and possible, path of least resistance, great. But if it becomes a big hurdle, we're not going to sit there and keep beating our heads against the wall. At least I would not recommend that.
Okay, so recommended action says for information and staff direction, but there's nothing clear on staff direction.
Well, I think there was an error in not getting those.
So what?
So we have your recommended action discussions.
So
is there a reason we can't use this
Which one?
as the very last page of the presentation.
So the Brown Act, the recommended actions are part of the staff report. What you're notifying the public on is your agenda. So your agenda is going to drive what you all can do as council right now.
Well, this was part of the agenda, wasn't it?
Well, the posted
No.
agenda. So you're just your action items. So you have your regular agenda and it says wastewater committee report. There was a report. So
Got it.
no action.
No action taken tonight.
That's right.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome around.
Yes.
Yes. Can I counsel on that?
I know one thing that needs to be clarified. On the rate study on my sewer bill, you cannot include the tertiary plant in on any expense for the tertiary plant.
That's correct.
Okay, well, you ought to tell people that she sounds the way she was
It's been
talking.
told
Well,
repeatedly, Andy.
yeah, but I'm just telling you, the only ones, yeah,
We've said it repeatedly.
okay. What I'm saying is the only ones that can really be charged on the sewer bill or the tertiary plant is Sutter Creek, because they dispose their water down here and they can be charged for that. City of Bayonne, out of our sewer fund, none of our money should be taken out to pay anything on that tertiary plant. And I think it's against the law. So when they do a rate study, he's gonna have to go back into the books. I don't know how, well, ever since the tertiary plant was there, and see how much money's been taken out of my sewer fund to pay for the tertiary plant. Because that's gotta be paid back. I'm almost positive. Little birdie told me that, so I'm just saying that let's make sure that it's clear the person doing the rate study that it's just for our,
Wastewater treatment.
that's right.
Yes,
And
clear.
and when they do that study, they're gonna probably find out that, I don't know if it's true, I don't do the books and I don't much care about, but if we've been taking money out of the sewer fund to pay for the tertiary plant, it's gonna be a big problem for Ione. Just remember that.
Thank you, Andy.
I'd like to agree with Andy. I think we spent about $1.2 million, if I remember right, the last time the finance person, $120,000 last year we used of our money. It's funny, we got to do a capacity study. And I got word that the water board let CDC and the fire academy didn't have to do one. They dropped that.
No, they have to do one as well. We're
Well,
all have to
I
do
just
the
heard the water
water.
board dropped it, so they don't have to do it. We got Amador County, well, it's actually Amador County. Ours is Amador County. People don't believe that, but there's 800 and some odd connections to ours up there from the county. Like anything over, that's why there's 2 people on the council. But I got an order, they don't have to follow anything. In 2007, they were supposed to check 7 wells for contamination. I got the order right here. They haven't done one thing since then. And Andy's absolutely right. We're not connected to the sewer. And the finance guy here could probably find it. I've got a paper showing it. Well, last year's $120,000 we used of our money to run the sewer tertiary plant. And another thing about the tertiary plant is, I believe that Valve, they have money, maybe it's off the subject, but they have $50,000 they can do maintenance with. They don't need to tell them how much a bolt and a gasket is. I mean, this is ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Any other public comment? No one on Zoom? Closing public comment? We do, okay, do we go through here or do we just go into closed session?
No, we gotta go do the reports and communications, city attorney, all of that.
All of it.
Mhm.
Andy,
I have none.
George,
The only thing I have is I'd like to introduce Michael Ormsby as the new finance manager tonight.
After the fact.
Coming from the city of Lodi. He used to work for the San Joaquin County. And Michael, if you want to come up and just say a few words and give the council a little bit about your background and so forth. Michael has been very diligent in addressing a lot of the issues that has to be organized. He's making the audit priority, and I'll let him get into more of the details.
So I'm Michael Ormsby. I was working leading up benefits out of San Joaquin County until recently, and decided pivot life towards going back towards a small town like I grew up in, and this place was near Lodi and seemed like the place to go. I have a military background for a number of years, and then mix of public and private sector jobs, looking for a long-term stay here. Only a few weeks into it, mostly trying to unravel issues with our payroll system and stuff like that, making sure everyone's getting paid right. But beyond that, trying to find ways to innovate and improve, save money where we can, and untangle some of the choices that were done with accounting in the past. Make it easier to have everything be transparent and see what's available to us. We have a backlog of some things that were either challenging in the past or kicked down the road. We're trying to get caught up on some audits, for instance. We'd rather not make enemies of the IRS. So we're trying to get those things addressed now and answer as many questions as we can along the way. Probably know more in just a couple more weeks, but for now, for what I do know, things are getting better. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We're happy to have you.
Council comments, committee reports, future agenda items.
Nothing right now.
Not quite yet.
Okay.
Are you?
Committee report. Is that all right?
You are.
All right, Dan Traxler, Chairman Parks and Rec Commission. So I'll give you an update on what we've been discussing, which will be coming to your council probably by your next meeting. We met with El Dorado Disc Golf Foundation and renewed that contract with them for the what's called the Amador Chain Angler Disc Golf Club. We're going to limit that to a 1-year agreement rather than these 20-year agreements that we keep getting involved with. We've also met with Mother Lode Youth Soccer League. We had a very interesting discussion with them and several of their members and several other citizens. And it was extremely interesting. We've actually come to some agreement, and then our next meeting, we will make a decision on what their upcoming annual fee will be. And you'll get that information from us probably by your next meeting. We'll make a recommendation and vote to pass it on to you so that you can agree with it. We also met with the Amador Little League West, same issue. These contracts were written 10 years ago for 20 years, and that was something that's not going to be done again. I may not be here 10 years from now when both of these are up, but we'll see. And they've agreed to some dollar amounts, and we're going to make those presentations to you at your next meeting. Finally, the Parks and Rec Commission is also working on a negotiation with some people that are involved with the dog park. If you read Facebook and our next door, you get all kinds of information about the dog park. And it seems that there are some people that want to take that park on as their own project. We're going to be having some of those people probably at our next meeting. Well, not probably, I know they'll be there at our next meeting. So we'll be able to discuss that and come up with some recommendations, and those will be presented to the council as well. We have also had discussion about the problem with the water at the park. The irrigation problems that are there on ongoing. I've actually been over there taking pictures of it. If on a baseball field number 3, if you are a little kid and you round first base, if you are going to second, you have to jump over a puddle. It's always there. So those things, we're going to start looking at those and see if we can't make some recommendations there also. So those are some of the things we're doing. If you have something that you personally would like for us to deal with, please present that to us and we can get it on our agenda, because we can't talk about anything that's not on the agenda.
Thank you, Dan.
You, Dan?
Thanks, Dan.
Appreciate it. Council comments. I'll go to my right.
I attended the Cops for Kids graduation on Saturday. Chief, great program. Please pass on. I don't see Sergeant Scroy out there and the rest of the group that was out there and the volunteers, but what an amazing program, and really kudos to you and the team. Great job. That's all I got right now.
Yeah, I just have a comment. I listened to all the sewer committee meetings, and I've done that for a very long time. And I think most of you know the whole reason I got on this council is because I worked at the sewer plant for about 2 years. And I complained to council back then about all the corruption, about all the illegal activity I saw, and that's why I got on council. At the time, the inspector was the mayor of the city of Citrus Heights, and he's the one that told me to get on council to help fix things. So when I was listening to the last sewer committee meeting, Justin did a great presentation. One of the things he brought up was one of the turbidity meters had a jumper wire in it that basically you can input whatever you want in it. So for a number of years, the past operator was taking the turbidity meter and they can just type in what they wanted. So I just wanted to show you what that actually is.
Mr. Rhodes.
This is, I am talking.
This is council.
You've done this to me before. I'm going to give this to the chief of police because the last time I did this, you guys turned me in for stealing city property. This is a rigged meter.
All right.
The water board knows about it now. This little relay makes it to where you can type in whatever you want to go through this turbidity meter. This has been done to probably 15 pieces of equipment down there. And I want everyone to see this.
Who's doing it?
The last operator.
You fired him.
We did.
So what is your
What's the
point?
point?
The point is, you're going to see a lot more of instrumentation being pulled out of there because it was sabotaged by the last operator.
And
we legally go after them for everything they've done to that
another
plant.
lawsuit. Okay. So do you have any committee reports or future agenda items?
I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Atlan. Mr.
I can't top that.
I didn't bring anything.
I just want to make sure that the West Yost recommendations and task orders are on the next agenda with action for this council. That's my agenda item.
Well, I don't know what happened with this agenda. We had a lot of items on there that disappeared and others showed up. The one question I have is, what happened to our new public works employee?
He changed his mind.
How long ago did that occur?
About a few weeks ago. So
Okay,
we put it-
so
We put another.
if you've did you
Should
put
we
the
post it?
correct one out?
We
The one
reposted.
with 5 years experience,
Mhm.
not the,
We've had a couple applications which will be coming forward.
Good.
So,
okay. With that said, we are going to adjourn to closed session before we have public.
Before we adjourn, I'm going to recuse myself from item number 1 in closed session. The conference with real property negotiation. Based on my primary residence being located on the golf course, among some other information, just to be sure.
Okay. I'm open to public comment on item number 1, which is the golf course.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to provide some information from the golf course. The delay in getting this contract signed is starting to become very manifest. You are putting out of work 41 people in the food service area at that golf course if Mr. Hahn goes through with his decision to close it down on the 4th. My understanding, and I've asked many people, is that that 41 is perhaps your largest single private sector employer in this town. So you need to get going. Secondly, in the month of December for last year, there were 22 scheduled events at that golf course, 13 of which are considered major events, corporate parties. Last year, that generated about $50,000 in revenue, $35,000 in profit. You're not getting this thing done means that didn't go to you. So the time to get going is now. If you are dealing in tens of thousands or 50s of thousands of dollars to make a deal, make a deal. I'm very impressed with this discussion of water. All I know is that for the last 2 months, you've been putting Mule Creek water on that golf course. And that Mule Creek water is either industrial waste, if you want to give it the benefit of the doubt, from a NIOSH government point of view, federal government, it's almost certainly hazardous waste. You're not zoned to put it on that golf course. I don't know why in the world you would. I don't know what the benefits to this town of putting that crap water on a public golf course is. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Hello again. Another meeting, another delay. Are you going to tell us anything what's happening here? We're running out of time, folks. You know, and now we got somebody reclusing themselves from it. I thought the only reason you could be reclused is if you had a financial interest in it.
Right.
That's correct.
That's correct.
And you've been working on it for 4 months. How come all of a sudden you got a financial interest on it? I don't understand it, folks. That's something wrong here.
My concern is my primary residence and my property. That is a financial piece to me. If I make decisions based on the fact while I live on there and continue down the path I have, despite being told it was not a conflict of interest, I now disagree with that.
You're also on sewer lines that you make decisions on, but they're broader reaching, as is this. So it would be like Stacy should have been then recused himself from the sewer replacement on Rancho Arroyo Seco. But it's a broader picture.
What are there any legal, I mean,
Yeah, so the financial interests are in what Jack's talking about is or Councilmember Mitchell, I'm sorry, is talking about is real property. So your real property interest, any property that you own that's worth $2,000 or more, that's within 500 feet of a transaction that the city's taking place that does not affect the public generally, would be considered a conflict of interest. And
what about his prior votes on this?
those are votes that
Haven't had a vote.
yeah,
We
have, I mean,
voted to take direction.
I mean, he's voted on sewer issues. He's voted on what Jack just talked about
right.
CDCR issues, all going on the golf course, and it's never been a problem for the last 4 years. And now all of a sudden it's a
Yeah,
problem. And then you want to know why there's a holdup. So there's one reason.
Yeah, the conflicts of interest are specific to the council members. So we can give advice, but we can't make council members do one thing or the other. As far as the sewer rates, those are public generally, because anything that affects more than 25% of the population.
The FPPC can give you all kinds of information and assistance on that. They have an
Well, I
800
make
number
a-
you can call and
I
give
will-
them the facts, and they'll give you assistance.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the optics of it.
It's been one of the most frustrating meetings I think I've attended.
Yeah. Okay.
Only one
hang
to
on.
go.
We're not, hang on. We're on public comment.
Golf course litigation.
Item number 2. Public comment on item number 2, which is, oh, it's at the front. I moved it, sorry. Public employee performance evaluation. This one is for city manager.
How long has the city manager been working for the city of Ione? How many months?
Public comment, Andy,
Oh, okay, well,
7, 8 months.
you guys should, what you should do when you evaluate him, you ought to give him a raise because he's making you money every month on our money that nobody ever did. I would be embarrassed to do what you're doing to him. He's probably the best thing that come to Ione. We're probably gonna make $500,000 on him this year just on interest, so. I hope you
Andy,
give
have
it,
you ever had a job that you weren't reviewed, your performance wasn't reviewed?
yeah, but he's reviewed almost every other meeting. I mean, come on, you guys. Why are you reviewing him? He's doing a good job.
That's the same one. We just didn't get
I know
anything
you
done.
just keep doing it and do it
No,
and do it.
no,
I know.
Andy, okay.
Okay, things are gonna change here by the first of the year on that city council. That's gonna be very good.
Yes,
And
it
then
is.
maybe when they evaluate him, they'll give him a brownie. Thank you.
I would think Mr. Lee is doing an excellent job. I've come to a lot of meetings and he made more sense than, there's only one other person that made much sense as he did. Thank you.
Any more public comment on item number 2 of closed session? No. Item number 3, public employment, city attorney. No. Okay, I'm gonna close public comment. We are gonna adjourn to closed session. Oh, there he is. I'd like to call the City of Ione regular meeting Tuesday, November 19th, 2024, back to order. Janice, can I have a roll call, please?
We need, oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Councilmember Applin.
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Here.
Mayor Ratten.
Here.
Here. He is unexcused absence. Okay, I'll start with item number 1, closed session. It's similar to what we reported out last time. You know, we have
Sorry to report.
the signed LOI. We are in constant communication with the Han family. I'm on the email thread. I'm watching things go back and forth. I'm watching things come together. I'm keeping a finger on it. Trying to move this thing forward as fast as we can. It's unfortunate that a lot of documents have to go back and forth. And it's part of the process. But I would like to say that there is good energy happening, and it would be my personal opinion. Can I do that?
You just did.
I think we're gonna be able to get this done, and that's what we're working towards. And I'm telling you, this council here, we're trying our best. I know it's been dragging out. I'm frustrated too, tired. So that's on item 1. Item 2, direction was given. And item number 3, city attorney, we didn't talk about any of this.
Direction given.
Direction given to staff.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I get to go to work.